Well, betting with the bag is betting with Bobano for this Thursday morning. I'm Ian Cameron joining you, filling in for Jimmy the Bag, who is under the weather. I don't know, it was a case of, Costa Rican flu, who knows? But nevertheless, I've been called out of the bullpen last minute to host the show. Hopefully, Jimmy, you're feeling better soon. And you're able to get back here in this chair as quick as possible. So I'm hosting this morning show today, Betting with the Bag, Thursday, October 17th, here for Sportsbook Review. Glad that you could all tune in and join the show today. That's no problem for me, of course, because I'm always on as a guest with Jimmy on Thursdays. So hosting's not a problem. I just got to get ready now because I know I'll be talking for 90 minutes instead of 20 minutes. So it's a big adjustment, but we'll get through it. And why will we get through it? Because I'm fired up. I'm absolutely excited for this day of sports that's ahead of us. You know, these Thursdays in October, man alive, are they fun? Are they exciting? Because you've got a lot to really dive into from a sports betting perspective. Look at today, for example. You've got Thursday Night Football, big AFC West matchup. Kansas City Chiefs and the Denver Broncos to get the NFL week started. You got two college football games, a Sun Belt game, Lafayette against let me have blanking on the name now. Arkansas State. There we go. UL Lafayette, Arkansas State. You've got UCLA and Stanford in the Pac-12. You've got a huge ALCS Game 4, pivotal game in that series tonight between the Astros and the Yankees at Yankee Stadium. You've got a big NHL card. And that's just, we haven't even gotten to NBA yet, which starts next week, the regular season. So there's a lot to be excited about right now. Looking forward to breaking it all down. As always, we will have my good friend Teddy Covers, Ted Savransky, joining the show as he does every single morning here on Betting with the Bag. He will be along at 11:50 a.m. Eastern Time. And we'll break down the Thursday games. We'll break down some NFL and college football for the upcoming weekend. So we're looking forward to that. Everybody in the chat, I'm just getting the chat loaded on my screen right now. Be patient, but we'll say hello to some of you guys, the great low baggers that are joining us every single day, morning and afternoon on this show. So looking forward to breaking down a very exciting Thursday card. I'm going to go with, we'll start with NFL. We'll go to college football after that. Then we'll do the MLB game. And then we'll do the NHL card, and hopefully we'll get through as much of that as possible before Teddy Covers joins us at 11:50 a.m. Eastern Time. So let's get started with the NFL game, Thursday Night Football, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Denver Broncos. The Kansas City Chiefs, they were 5.5, 6-point road favorites at one point. Now all the way down to -3. The Kansas City Chiefs laying a field goal in Mile High. The total 49 pretty much across the board right now for this game. And obviously, this is, I think, a twofold movement with the line toward Denver here in this game. Number one is there's been money coming in every week against the Kansas City Chiefs. There is a flock of quote-unquote sharps, if you want to call them that. Although they've been doing better fading Kansas City lately, that's for sure. But they just believe Kansas City's a little bit fraudulent, a little bit overvalued in the betting markets. And certainly there are flaws in this football team. And the flaws right now are, a defense that continues to be a major Achilles heel for this football team. The Chiefs continue to struggle on the defensive end of the football. That's a concern. Getting off the field on third down has been an issue as well. For the Kansas City Chiefs defense. I think it's concerning that last week against Houston in the loss against the Texans at home, second straight loss, by the way, that was for Kansas City. I think it's very, very concerning that you have a situation where Carlos Hyde, who's, let's be honest, is he really a top flight running back in the NFL? I would say not. He just runs amok against Kansas City's defense. The defensive line, which is dealing with some injuries as well. There's not many units on the field for the Chiefs right now that aren't dealing with injuries at this point in time. But they just got, every time it was a third and short or second and medium, and the Texans would just continuously running the football right down Kansas City's throat. And to be honest with you, the Chiefs had absolutely no answers for it either. So that's definitely a concern for Kansas City, a defense that can't get off the field, an offense that's banged up, an offensive line that's definitely got some injuries. Looks like they're going to be without Eric Fisher again, who's been an absolutely integral part of that O-line for the Kansas City Chiefs. And you're seeing it take its toll on this team in terms of their ability to be that same explosive vertical passing offense that we're used to seeing. I mean, Patrick Mahomes has made, a brief NHL career or NFL career in a couple of months here, or a couple of years here, a couple seasons, based on being able to find receivers down the field, and he's just not having the time anymore that he used to have to be able to find those receivers. The O-line injuries have played a significant role in that. There's no question. The way I see it with Denver is, there's definitely some positive momentum now for the Broncos. After a really rough start to the season, they've notched back-to-back wins against the Chargers and the Titans. I'll be honest with you guys. I think it was more the Titans were totally inept offensively last week. I mean, and it's the reason why Marcus Mariota rightfully has been benched here for this game. I think, or for the Tennessee game on Sunday. But, Tennessee was inept offensively. And I know Kansas City's not the same offense right now with some of the injuries they're dealing with on the O-line. But to me, this is going to be a much taller order for Denver in terms of their defense here tonight. You still have Patrick Mahomes' ability to escape the pocket when the play breaks down. He's certainly a guy that's capable of, making things happen. He might be able to do that. He's going to need to do that because I think Denver's defensive front is going to be a concern for that banged up Kansas City offensive line here tonight. Look, maybe I'm stubborn here because I went against Denver last week. I took Tennessee in that game, plus I got +2 with Tennessee against Denver. I did take Denver against the Chargers 2 weeks ago, but I went against them last week because I thought that was more of a, let's fade the Chargers as home favorites. And they showed again against Pittsburgh last week how bad they are in that point spread role. And I went against Denver last week. I, got my teeth kicked in for it. I was infuriated with how bad Marcus Mariota was in that game. Now that this line is 3, okay, I get the injuries for Kansas City. I really do. Short week, you're going on the road. I understand that. This is a team now that's lost 2 in a row. The urgency's there. The focus is there. In theory, it damn well should be. You've lost 2 games in a row at home to the Colts and the Texans. You should be ready for this game. You should be wanting to right this ship and get back in the win column. And you talk about a series history that's been dominated by one team. That would be this series history. Kansas City over the Denver Broncos. Kansas City, 6-0 straight up, 5-1 against the spread the last 6 meetings against the Denver Broncos. They have done very well. They've had no problems winning here in Denver. I said all along this week, I wasn't going to be involved in this game early in the week. Now that we've got a flat 3 on the Kansas City Chiefs, I still think this is a better football team. I think it's a spot where even amongst the injuries, you step up, you find a way to get the job done. I think it's value now on the Kansas City side. So an NFL Thursday night game, guys, that I was not going to be involved with. I didn't want any part of it when when Kansas City rather was laying 5.5 here in this game. Now that it's 3, that's to me a little bit of an overreaction here to Denver's 2 wins. Look, Chargers, we saw the Chargers against Pittsburgh. Is that win now suddenly so good for Denver? We saw an inept Marcus Mariota. I mean inept. You can tell I'm still angry. He was freaking terrible in that game. Awful. Bad as it gets. He was awful. I can't explain that enough. Marcus Mariota was absolutely pathetic in that game against Denver. See, I'm getting it. I'm getting angry now, thinking back to that. I just absolutely brutal he was in that performance on Sunday against the Broncos. This is going to be a step up for Denver. Chargers win doesn't impress me as much. We saw Chargers lose to a banged-up Pittsburgh team playing their 3rd quarterback, Devlin Hodges, and lose outright as favorites in that game. Tennessee has no offense with Mariota at quarterback. So, Kansas City now laying 3. Win or lose, I'm happy with this number. Laying just a short field goal here with Kansas City on the road. I know the defense is suspect, but Flacco, you could say the defense is suspect for Kansas City, and it sure as hell is. And it concerns me that they couldn't stop Carlos Hyde on the ground. You're going to have to face Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman out of that Denver backfield tonight. But I'm telling you right now, this is a good number now. It's a little bit of value in my mind toward the Kansas City side. And even with the injuries, sometimes teams can step up and still find a way. Just ask the Pittsburgh Penguins on the ice last night. Look at all the injuries they had, and all they did was win in overtime against the lone remaining undefeated team in the NHL going into that last night, that being the Colorado Avalanche. So I like Kansas City here. I'm going to grab them now at -3 against Denver. I'm going to pass on the total, 49. Once you get into the 40s in a game involving Kansas City, I'm always leery with the under because we know they're explosive. We know they like to push the ball down the field with Patrick Mahomes, but at the same point in time, the offense has been not quite the same the last couple of weeks. So I'm not involved in the total, but I am going to take Kansas City or -3. Let's see what the chat's saying. Dom Ricci, I appreciate the kind words, my good friend. It was great to meet him in Miami along with so many people a couple months ago. That's a experience and a trip we'll never forget. No question about that. So everybody that was in Miami for that trip. Let's see what we got. Maxwell Smart, good to see you, Maxwell Smart, saying hello, low baggers. Joe Rich Ramirez, I agree. My POD on the Audible, KC. All right, good to hear that. I'd rather be in agreement with people than disagreement. I can tell you that right now when it comes to my plays and opinions, no question. Rod Zawacki, nice to see you. Eric Nisbet, a regular in here. Alex Guerrero, remember what Teddy said? The line is a trap. Broncos is the right side. I don't totally disagree. But we're talking about a 2.5-point shift in the line. And in the NFL, that's significant. In college football, when a line moves 2.5 points, to me, that's not as significant because to me, college football games do not, as a whole, as an entirety, college football games don't fall as close to the line for the majority as NFL games do. That's personally the way I see it. So a 2.5-point move in an NFL line, that is a much, much bigger deal, in my opinion, than a 2.5-point line move in a college football game. That's the way I see it because you've got way more instances, I think, in the NFL where the final score is going to fall pretty close to where the line is. And that, to me, that's going to end up being – and that, to me, is why I think this line move is significant. I understand the injuries, no question. Believe me, I know all about the injuries, and I know the defense has struggled, and all of this stuff is stuff that you guys know it, I know it. I'm sure Teddy knows it when he joins us, but I'm talking about now -3. Where if Kansas City wins by a field goal, and it could be a 3-point game, and I've got that security that if they do win by 3, it's a push. Now at this number, I still say Kansas City to me is superior to Denver. And I know it's been a little ugly at times for the Chiefs, but to me, the Broncos' 2 wins are against big-time flawed football teams. So that's the way I see it. Brooklyn Funk Project saying KC has the better quarterback and the better head coach by far. I didn't necessarily think they would have the better head coach by far, but I do agree they have the better head coach. I've been disappointed in Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio is starting to remind me of as being one of those guys like Todd Bowles right now with Tampa Bay. He might be a guy that's better as a coordinator than he is a head coach. Some guys are just, they can't handle all the responsibilities. Once they start having to oversee the entire football team, they got to oversee the offense, the defense, the special teams. They got to make sure they keep track of who's injured, who's healthy, who's not. Oversee roster decisions across the entire team. Once they have all these extra tasks they got to deal with, they suffer sometimes from it. And that's why some guys, they can handle the step up from being a coordinator to a head coach, and some guys can't. And so, so far I've been, let's say, underwhelmed. I don't want to say he's not been brutal, Vic Fangio, by any stretch of the imagination, but I've been underwhelmed. Let's put it that way with the way he has been so far as the head coach of this Denver Broncos team through the first month and a bit of the NFL season. So that's my take on that game, KC -3 against Denver. Let's move over to college football now. We have 2 games on the slate tonight. It's UL Lafayette, the Ragin' Cajuns, taking on the Arkansas State Red Wolves. We've got UL Lafayette laying 6.5 on the road here. The total 68 here in this game tonight, Sun Belt clash. To me, we've got some key injuries on the defensive side of the football. on both of these teams heading into this game. I think that's a big reason why the total's been pushed up, and I certainly don't disagree with that. You look at Arkansas State, they've gotten in a lot of shootouts this year. They really have. They're a team that really is excellent offensively, but very, very suspect defensively. And that's going to be the concern, I think, going into this game here tonight against Lafayette. Lafayette does have a pretty good offense themselves. Lafayette, no shame in losing to Appalachian State in that big weeknight game. I still think Appalachian State going into that game was the class of the Sun Belt. They proved it with that win against UL Lafayette. Now UL Lafayette facing a team that they have a better chance probably of handling. That being said, it's dangerous to lay 6.5 against an offense like this. The Arkansas State Red Wolves have a fantastic offensive football team. There's no question about that. We got to mention, by the way, Matt Randall's taint parlay. Oh, not taint play, taint parlay, because I've been around long enough to know he's had a great long-term record with the taint plays. It's something he should be pretty happy about, pretty proud of. Matt Randall's taint parlay is Kansas City and Stanford money line tonight. Both of them on the money line. Chiefs in the NFL money line, Stanford in college football against UCLA money line. So good luck to Matt with that taint parlay tonight. So he's done very good with those. Nasty Nate, NFL. Yeah, we just mentioned NFL, Nate. I like Kansas City. -3 against Denver. I hope to hear Mitch Holthus, the great radio voice of the Kansas City. Touchdown, Kansas City. I hope to hear a lot of that tonight when they take on the Broncos. He's a good play-by-play guy. Does some Missouri Valley college basketball on television as well. But nevertheless, getting back to Lafayette, Arkansas State, I agree with this move in the total. I only bet it for a half unit, which is a smaller play for me based on the way my bankroll structures. It's half unit and 1 unit with my plays. Usually that's the way I go in terms of breaking up the size of each wager. I'm just going half unit on this because, you know what, there's something about these weeknight Sunbelt games, especially in conference. The teams know each other better. Coaches know each other better. And even though it's a situation where, look, Arkansas State's defense is not very good. They've played a lot of, absolutely, porous defense in the majority of their games so far this season. No question about that. As much as I think this has points written all over it, because I like the Lafayette offense to be able to score against Arkansas State's defense, and I like Arkansas State offensively to be able to move the ball in this game as well against Lafayette, who were very good defensively against App State. Not take anything away from them, but Arkansas State's been able to move the ball pretty much against anybody this season. That's the concern going into it for the UL Lafayette team defensively, is that Arkansas State's been able to move the ball at will. So I like the over. I think the matchup makes sense for the over in this game, and it's 68 now across the board. But again, the one pause I did have was these Sun Belt games have started to trend under. You look at Troy, South Alabama last night. Game stayed under the total. You look at UL Lafayette against App State, that Wednesday night game last week. That game stayed under the total. It's just one of those situations where we've started to see this pattern of under in these Sun Belt weeknight football games. So even though I think the matchup says bet it over, and I still have to defer to the matchup. I can't just say, bet it under because we've seen a bunch of weeknight Sunbelt games start to go under the total. I can't think like that. I won't allow myself to think like that because I look at each game as an individual entity. I look at each matchup as its own game, and you have to handicap it that way. You can't just put a blanket statement over everything. Oh, it's a Sunbelt weeknight game. It has to stay under the total. I think the matchup dictates it's going to be a higher scoring game, and that's the way I would definitely go with this one here in terms of the over. And, if it stays under, because, weeknight Sunbelt games have trended that way, so be it. But I do think that game will find its way up and over the total. Again, the total in that game right now currently 68 pretty much across the board at this point in time between UL Lafayette, the Raging Cajuns, and Arkansas State. The Pac-12 matchup, UCLA taking on Stanford. We've got a huge movement, obviously, in this game. Tons of quarterback injury news from the Stanford side. Stanford opened as an 8-point home favorite in this game. They're 3.5 now across the board at home against UCLA. The total 49.5 as they host the struggling, and I mean struggling, UCLA Bruins here in this matchup. Obviously, the big news here for Stanford is they're down to their number 3 quarterback. It's been an absolutely rough season for David Shaw's football team in terms of injuries at the quarterback position. KJ Costello goes down. Davis Mills goes down. So now you're down to your 3rd string QB here in this game for the Stanford Cardinal. We'll see how he fares here in this matchup against the UCLA Bruins. It has definitely been a struggle for Stanford's offense at times this year. The good news is, they're going up. They've got Cameron Scarlett, who had a really strong game, I thought, in the victory for Stanford against Washington in that big upset that the Cardinal were able to pull in that game against the Huskies. I thought he ran the ball extremely well in that victory against the Washington Huskies, and they're going to have to rely on him tonight. You're down to your 3rd quarterback. You absolutely are going to need to be able to run the football. And one thing we know about UCLA's defense this year, they've been soft. We'll see if they can handle it here, because I think Cameron Scarlett, ability to run the football against a suspect UCLA defense, that's going to be key to give Jack West, the starting quarterback, a little bit of support, not put too much pressure on his shoulders to have to make it happen through the passing game. So, Jack West, let's see what he's got in him here at the quarterback spot tonight for Stanford. I'm looking at this as a situation right now in this game where this is a game I'm not going to get involved with, but I can tell you right now, I think now at 3.5 with Stanford here in this game, there's some value on that side. I'm not one of those people that lays points with Stanford. I have not taken Stanford as a favorite in any price range, whether it's even them just laying a field goal, or whether it's them laying a touchdown, or whether they're double-digit favorites. I just don't usually look to lay points with Stanford, and the fundamental thinking for me behind that is because this is one of the most conservative, vanilla, offenses going in college football. It's always been that way under David Shaw. They don't take a lot of risks. They don't take a lot of chances. You got to be able to, be a little bit aggressive, be able to turn red zone opportunities into touchdowns more often than not. So many times you're seeing, Stanford settling for field goals when they shouldn't. So that's my concern here. You definitely have concerns laying points with Stanford. That's the way it's always been with this team under David Shaw. They have a 3rd string quarterback now in Jack West. There's concerns with laying points with them. I know they're at home. It's going to help this kid, be the fact that he's at home, but there's still concerns here for me with laying points. All of that being said, I have no interest backing UCLA. I mean, UCLA, we saw it. I mean, if you didn't think it could get worse for Chip Kelly, you saw it get worse with that loss to Oregon State. That was an absolutely horrendous performance by this UCLA Bruins team. Absolutely awful in all phases. Not good at all. Not torn up defensively, ripped apart defensively in that game. Offense really was struggled to move the football consistently, although it was Austin Burton at the quarterback position for UCLA in that game. Last I checked, I've been trying to find some damn good info on Dorian Thompson-Robinson's status, because there is a chance he's going to return from that knee injury for this game tonight for UCLA, but questionable is the last I heard. But this is, to me, not a situation where if Dorian Thompson-Robinson plays, wow, I got to take UCLA now. No, this is a bad football team. I don't make a case to back bad football teams, especially now in a price range where they've got to win the game or come very close to winning the game in order to cash a ticket. So to me, not involved in the game, but if you had to make me choose, you put me up, you forced my hand, said, Ian, you got to bet this side. What are you taking? Reluctantly, I'm taking Stanford, laying the 3.5, even though I hate laying points with this team and I hate taking them as a favorite. That's how much I've soured on UCLA. I think it's a program that's in despair right now. It's in shambles. This was supposed to be a year where they were supposed to be much improved. Chip Kelly was supposed to be able to turn this thing around this year, be a much improved football team, and we're just not at all seeing it. from this Stanford Cardinal team. You look at their results. They're 1-5 straight up on the season, 2-4 against the spread. The only win was the luckiest win ever in the weird, crazy, insane game against Washington State. That crazy game where they were down by 20 points at one time. Washington State had turnover issues, and I mean a ton of turnover issues, and UCLA came back and won that game. That's it. That's the only win here for UCLA. And now they're getting only 3.5, and they're in a price range on the road where you got to trust them to win a game. And their only win was, borderline fluke. Borderline fluke win. Let's be honest. They were down by 20. They looked like they were dead in that game against Washington State. The Cougars had all kinds of turnover problems, and next thing you know, a 20-point Washington State lead turns into a UCLA win. That's the only win for UCLA this season. So, if I'm forced to bet it, it's Stanford minus 3.5, but I'm passing personally on that game. Let's turn our attention now to baseball. It's a big one. It's the ALCS Game 4. Houston Astros, New York Yankees at Yankee Stadium. We have New York right now about minus 123 to minus 126. Even some minus 130s out there, but they're a moderate home favorite here in Game 4. The total 8.5. Zach Greinke on the mound for the Astros. Masahiro Tanaka for the Yankees. I know there was some good discussion, courtesy of Dom Ricci, who, by the way, is doing a really good job in baseball right now. I tip my cap. I say salute to Dom Ricci for doing well with the baseball. The baseball postseason. He's done a really good job with it so far. The big news is obviously, the wind situation going into this game, blowing out hard. The wind at Yankee Stadium for this game tonight. I'm looking at this as a situation personally. Yeah, Liberty Finder Jimmy is sick. I just wanted to mention, in case you're late arriving to the chat and just joined the show late, Jimmy is sick this morning. Just messaged me 2 hours before the show, say, Ian, I need you to host the morning show for me. So that's why I'm here, which is okay, because like I say, I'm always on as a guest Thursday, so hosting the show, no big deal whatsoever, filling in for Jimmy. And we hope he is feeling better. He could be. Barry Blunt, Jimmy's getting hand jobs in Panama. Maybe he just wanted the morning off to have some pleasure. Who knows? But nevertheless, getting back to this game, I'm all in on the Yankees today. I really am. I'll lay the minus 125 with them in this game. I trust Tanaka. I have no trust, none, zero, in Greinke. You look at Greinke, home runs have plagued this guy. He's been absolutely crushed in terms of the long ball. You saw it in the first game of this series against the Yankees. You saw it basically in the last round against the Tampa Bay Rays. This is a guy that gives up home runs. And now you're pitching in a ballpark that I don't trust him in, Yankee Stadium, and on a day where, you got some wind blowing out in this ballpark tonight. This is not a situation where I trust right now Zach Greinke to go out there and pitch a good game. I just don't. And then for the Yankees, you want to avoid a 3-1 hole. I'm not saying you can't come back against this Astros team down 3-1 in this series, but you don't want to put yourself in that position. I think this is a time for the Yankees lineup and they've preached taking better at bats going into this game. Well, I think they got this is the guy that right now, in theory, if you're gonna hit a Verlander or a Cole or a Greinke, which one are you gonna take your chances with in terms of we think we can hit him? We're gonna take the chance with Greinke. That we can get some things done against him, because you look at him, he served up 5 home runs in 2 postseason starts. Not very good. 7 hits allowed in the Game 1 loss. His postseason record, 3-6 in 13 postseason starts and 0-3 since 2015. So this is not a postseason performer, Zach Greinke. He has had repeated struggles pitching well in October, and I think it's a situation where it's going to be, to me, a game where the Yankees lineup can come to life a little bit. They should be able to. And again, you get to Greinke early, which is, I think, the possibility. I've seen, Greinke, knocked out of these playoff games early too in the Tampa Bay series, earlier in this series. And you're going to get into that middle relief of Houston, which is not the same as facing, Will Harris and Roberto Osuna, the closer, and some of the better arms later in the game that the Yankees have had to see in the first 2 games of this series. So I think this is definitely, to me, a Yankee spot. I think it probably could possibly be an over the total spot as well, 8.5. I think we're overdue for an over in this series. This is probably the best chance for it to happen. And as good as Tanaka's been really good here in the postseason. He's also facing, an Astros lineup that will be a step up for him. I don't think he's going to completely shut down Houston's lineup. And they'll be able to score, I think, a couple of runs as well. But I'm expecting the Yankees to do damage. I wouldn't argue with Yankee team total over as well. That's definitely something that interests me as well. Just looking at the Yankees team total over in particular going into this game. So Yankees bullpen. Well, both bullpens are rested, obviously, with the postponement yesterday and Game 4 having to be moved to today. So bullpens, are rested on both sides. So that also leads me to think, if I'm going to bet this game over the total, do I go over 8.5 full game, or do I go first 5 over? Because that might make a little bit more sense. Because I do think there's a chance more of the Yankee damage at the plate in this game tonight could come against Greinke as opposed to the Houston bullpen. And if it indeed plays out that way, there's a chance that the first 5 innings will be higher scoring than the full game overall. So that's what I'm looking at. Yankees, I'll definitely be on the Yankees minus 125 tonight. And looking at maybe I'll probably do a split. Because I was going to do 1 unit on the Yankees, 1 unit on the over. I'll probably go half and half. Half unit first 5 over, half unit full game over. That's probably the way I'm going to go. I just rather split it up in this particular situation tonight, because I do think the focusing in on Greinke in particular and the Yankees getting to him is the primary reasoning for me liking a little bit of a higher scoring game tonight. So I'd like that security where, okay, Yankees do damage against Greinke, they get out to a lead. Maybe, they don't do as much against the Astro bullpen, and you're not stuck with, maybe losing a full game over when the majority of the runs are in the first 5 innings. So I'm going to go first 5 over, full game over, split that up half and half, and also to make up the 1 unit, and also a unit on Yankees at about minus 125 right now, current price with that. Although it's climbing right now, minus 124 at 5 dimes, 26 at Heritage, 27 at Chris. So it looks like the money's starting to trickle in on the Yankees. So if you like that side, probably better to bet it sooner rather than later. All right, we're about 15 minutes away from Teddy Covers joining me as my guest on this Thursday. He's here every morning on the show. Let's see what everybody in the chat's saying about this Yankee game. Vincent Hawkins saying go first 5. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to split it up. I still am going to go something on full game over 8.5, but I am definitely going to have first 5 over in hand as well. I just think it'd be wise. It's the prudent play, I think, considering that I really do believe the Yankees will get to Greinke early in the game. First 5 is 4.5 minus 105, so I will have that in hand as well in this game. Over 4.5 first 5, over 8.5. Full game, as well as that Yankee money line for this game. I think this is as good a spot, good a situation as for the Yankees as you'll find. They don't want to go down 3-1. They've got the most vulnerable pitcher on this Astros starting staff going in this game tonight. I think this is the opportunity for the Yankees to finally get some life in their offense, get a win under their belt, and tie this series up at 2. Because I think this series is probably going to go 7. I said it would go 7 before it started, and if it's going to go 7. It's pretty important that the Yankees win this one, because, again, this is their most vulnerable opposing starting pitcher that they're going to see here in this series. So Yankees money line, and then I'm splitting up the first 5 and full game over in this one. All right, so we're 15 minutes away from Teddy. First 5 run line Yanks, says Vincent Hawkins. Let's see. Dom Ricci's on Yanks first 5 minus 125. Yanks run line full game plus 145 and over 8 and 8.5. Yeah, the Yankees run line's a decent value. Again, it's too good of a lineup to be shut down. And you look at the game in Game 3 of this series against Garrett Cole. Yeah, he shut them down. He kept them off the scoreboard. But there were times when the Yankees had ducks on the pond in multiple innings, guys on base. One clutch hit could have completely changed that game around for the Yankees. And the one at bat, the one AB that stands out is Didi Gregorius in that 5th inning when there were 2 guys on base. They were down 2-0 at the time. And there's Didi Gregorius with a shot right to the wall in right field. And usually when a ball gets hit to right field at that little bandbox ballpark at Yankee Stadium, it's pretty much guaranteed home run. But it got caught up in some wind and stayed in the park, and it was caught on the warning track. That close from 3-2 Yankees after 5 innings in Game 3. So again, it shows you just how razor thin the margin can be, in an MLB playoff series, in sports in general, but especially baseball at this time of year. You're just that close to maybe taking a 3-2 lead and maybe a completely different complexion on that game. And instead, Astros end up winning Game 3 to take the 2-1 series lead. All right, we got 12 minutes before Teddy arrives, so we're going to blast through the hockey card now. We turn our attention to the ice, a little for the puckheads that are in the chat. NHL action. We'll go rapid fire down the card. Rangers and Devils. We've got New Jersey minus 125, home favorites in this game, total 6.5, shaded to the under. This is a pretty easy play for me. Not that it's going to be easy in terms of it's going to win for sure, because nothing's easy, but easy in terms of me coming up with this opinion and this bet. I thought the Rangers would be a higher scoring team coming into this season. I definitely thought New Jersey would be a higher scoring team coming into this season. They'd play with more pace. They'd play with more tempo. They'd be more explosive and a little bit deeper in terms of their 4 lines, 4 forwards, 4 lines of scoring contributions. We've seen that so far. I think the Rangers have a chance to really get their offense going. It was nice to see Capo Caco, the 2nd overall pick, first-round pick of the Rangers, get his first goal of the season and of his NHL career the other night against it was the Edmonton game. I believe he got that first goal. They lost that game, the Rangers, but he got that first goal. I think the floodgates could open. New Jersey's not playing any defense. I've now seen New Jersey talk about we got to shore things up in our own zone multiple times, and they still haven't done that. That loss against Florida Monday afternoon when they're up by 2 goals in that hockey game, that was absolutely hideous. It was absolutely brutal in terms of that loss. And it's not the first time they've blown a lead. It's not the first time they've had a crappy defense so far this season and suspect goaltending end up doing them in. It's become a problem. Now there's some vultures circling all of a sudden on John Hines, the head coach of this Devils team. Tom Fitzgerald, the GM, and from what I've heard, these guys are good friends. Tom Fitzgerald, he doesn't want to fire him, but he's now moving down to the bench tonight, and he's going to be on act as a pseudo assistant coach on the bench tonight for New Jersey next to John Hines. That's bizarre. That's odd, and that tells me that the head coach is under some big-time scrutiny right now. And there's already whispers, if they don't turn this thing around, New Jersey, and get better in the next week or so, there could be a change or so going into it. So, I know Heishier's out. I like that. Someone mentioned that in the chat. Definitely going to be an impact absence for New Jersey. But this is a team with more offensive depth, to be able to withstand that, even though he's out. Hall, Hughes is going to get going eventually. I think it's just a little bit of a learning process for him. Palmieri, Coleman, Zajac, Wood, Nikita Gusev, Simmons, Pavel Zakas, and Jesper Bratt have been able to find the score sheet in recent games. So we'll see how he goes here. And it's not like Hischier was lighting it up. Hischier's numbers this season, he doesn't have a goal this season. 2 assists, 2 points. That's it for Nico Hischier. So it's not like a guy that's in great, incredible form offensively at that end of the ice is coming out of the lineup. Yeah, they miss him, but it's not like he was, lighting up the score sheet for the New Jersey Devils prior to that injury. So obviously long term they're going to miss him. Don't get me wrong, but to me, New Jersey can still find the back. I think the Rangers will. I like that game over 6.5 tonight. I'm going to need New Jersey to prove to me that they can shore up defensively, get better goaltending, and until they do that, I've got no problem taking an over in their games, especially when I think these are the 2 teams that I had pegged as dead nuts over teams this season. Improved Rangers offense, still a somewhat shaky Ranger defense, and obviously the same goes with the Devils. So 6.5, looking at that game over the total. By the way, no Hank Lundqvist tonight for the Rangers in net. It'll be Alexander Georgiev getting the start tonight for the New York Rangers in that game. Again, small sample size. He was good in his one start, but I think it'll be a tougher challenge for him. From a side perspective, it's Rangers or pass. I can't lay a price with New Jersey. They've been that bad until they show they can win a hockey game. I don't want to lay any price with the Devils right now. Tampa Bay, Boston. Boston minus 115, total 6, shaded to the over. This is a Bruins or pass spot for me in this game. In fact, now that it's down to minus 115, I'm a little bit more interested in this Bruins side here against Tampa Bay. Don't be fooled by the Tampa Bay score the other night against Montreal. 3-1 win for the Lightning. That was as fraudulent a score as you'll ever see. Montreal was the better team that night. They had better possession, better offensive chances. They were swarming the Tampa Bay net most of that night. I'm looking at a situation here where Tampa Bay is really, outside of blowing out the Leafs last Thursday, they have played a lot of mediocre hockey. The win against Florida on their first game of the season, they should have lost that game. They were outplayed. They lost to Florida in the rematch. They were dominated by Carolina. They lost that game. Okay, they blew out Toronto. That was their best game, but Toronto was an absolute disaster defensively that night. They lose to Ottawa. They don't show up in that game against a young rebuilding Senators team. And then against Montreal, okay, they bounce back and win. They didn't deserve the win. Montreal is the better team. You watch that game. That's why you can't look at final scores in this sport, NHL, and say, hey, I'm doing my job as a handicapper or a bettor. I'm doing my job effectively. No, you got to watch. And if you can't watch the games, and I try to watch as many games as possible, if you can't watch the games, you have to dig into the box score, dig into the recap. There's game recaps posted on various websites on every hockey game. You got to read up. If you can't watch the game, read up on how exactly the game flow went. How exactly did the game flow transpire for in that particular game? And if you see the game flow for the Tampa Montreal game, you'll see that you'll see that Montreal was a better team. I mean, they had they dominated territorially for most of that game. So there's issues with Tampa Bay. And I said before the season, Tampa Bay is going to have a Golden State Warriors mindset this year, whereas the regular season is just not a big concern for them. They're going to pace themselves. If they have games where they take the night off, they don't show up, they're sloppy, they play poorly, they're not going to lose their minds over it anymore because, the President's Trophy is not interesting them anymore. They saw what the President's Trophy got them last year, and it was bounced in the first round. That's what the President's Trophy got them. For them, it's pace themselves. Try to fine-tune our game, try different line combinations if you're head coach John Cooper, different D pairs, and see how it goes. So, not a good performance from Tampa. Boston's playing great hockey. Outstanding. What are they now? 2-0 so far on this homestand since they returned home. Their only loss was to Colorado on the season. A very good Avalanche team that only lost their first game of the season last night. Give me Boston here, minus 115 in this game. Very, very reasonable price with the Bruins, in my opinion here, the way they're going. Minnesota, Montreal. We've got Montreal minus 165, total 6. I'm passing on this game, not involved. I want nothing to do with Minnesota, that's for sure. Their only win was against Ottawa on Monday, and it wasn't even all that dominant or all that impressive of a performance. It was an impressive performance, I guess you could say, though, for Alex Stalock in that win against Ottawa. He got the shutout in that Monday afternoon win for the Minnesota Wild. It's one of the, and I think it's a big part of the reason why Bruce Boudreau's going to give Alex Stalock a chance today. Alex Stalock got the shutout against Ottawa. They went back to Devin Dubnyk in the game against Toronto on Tuesday night. They lose that game 4-2. Not that it was Dubnyk's fault entirely, but they're going to give Stalock another look here. He got the shutout against Ottawa. I still think that's an anomaly. I still think that's an anomaly because Alex Stalock's been a marginal goalie his whole career, and yes, he had a nice performance in a shutout against a very young Ottawa team. I don't know if that's necessarily saying, whoa, Alex Stalock's going to just all of a sudden take over the starting job here and he's going to go on a run. He's going to be incredible. He's going to be lights out. I don't think so. So to me, I'm looking at a situation here where I'm going to have to see Stalock play well in net again before I truly believe that he is going to be capable of playing good for an extended stretch of time. It's a Montreal spot. There's no question. Montreal beat St. Louis, should have beat Tampa the other night, deserved a better fate. They'll probably be ready to go for this game. They do play St. Louis again on Saturday, but I don't view that as a look ahead or anything. Maybe you go Montreal in regulation. Let me see what the price is on that. I would recommend that. I don't think Minnesota, if they lose, I don't think they're going to lose in overtime. I think they'll probably lose decisively if they lose this game. Yeah, Montreal in regulation, guys, you can get that at minus 115. So again, you shave off about 50 cents going with the regulation option on the Canadians instead of the full game money line. So I think that's a reasonable option there. I'm not going to bet it. I'm passing, but I would definitely recommend maybe Montreal in regulation tonight, -115 against Minnesota. Reasonable price for them to get it done within 60 minutes. Islanders, Winnipeg -130. The total 6 shaded to the under. Now, Winnipeg's defensive warts continue to show up and rear their ugly head. I mean, we talked about it, how this defense has lost. Dustin Byfuglien is still contemplating his hockey future. Jacob Trouba's now with the Rangers. Tyler Myers is now with the Canucks. Anthony Botetto's out. Nathan Beaulieu hasn't played yet this season. Yes, Morrissey came back recently, but you're down to, other than Morrissey, you've got Tucker Poolman, Carl Dahlstrom, Neil Pionk, Ville Heinola, and Dmitry Kulikov as your defenseman. I mean, it's a very young, very inexperienced, very green blue line, and you're seeing the growing pains of that right now for this Winnipeg Jets team. They're just very, very treacherous in their own zone, not managing the puck properly. You're going to have that with a lot of younger players along the blue line right now for the Jets. So they're off 2 straight losses now against Arizona and Pittsburgh at home. And I'm not a big Islander fan. So as much as I don't trust Winnipeg here, I don't want to back the Islanders. I don't think much of the Islanders. I think their offense is pedestrian. If the Jets are ever going to step up with a better shutdown defensive game, you would think it would be tonight against a weaker offensive team like the New York Islanders. It's a tough game, side and total for me. I wish I could give you more on that game than that. I'd like to give you some kind of opinion on each game, but that one's a tough one for me, and I'm going to stay off that game completely, Islanders and Jets. Vancouver, St. Louis. St. Louis -190, home favorites, total 5.5 here. Circle the wagons time for St. Louis. They've lost 2 in a row for the first time this season. They didn't play good defensively against Montreal on Saturday, losing that game. They had the game against the Islanders in the bank, essentially, on Monday. 2-0 lead in the third period, and the Islanders storm back, tie it up in the final minute, 2-2. And next thing you know, St. Louis losing in overtime against the Islanders. So all of a sudden, and that was a loss that did not sit well. You read the quotes. You heard from Craig Berube, the head coach, after the game. You hear what Pietrangelo had to say. Braden Shen, the leadership group on that Blues team after that game. They weren't happy. They weren't happy coughing up that third period lead. This is not a spot I'm looking to get in St. Louis's way. Vancouver got a nice homestand, but now can you win on the road? And they have not won on the road yet, and they haven't played anybody as good on the road as this St. Louis team yet either. So I think the Canucks are definitely a team that I'm looking at as a team that will improve, be better this season, certainly offensively. I like the progress that's being made, but now you got to show you can take that on the road, and now you're facing the defending Stanley Cup champs in PO mode. Pissed off, and I think they are pissed off following that loss that they had, back-to-back losses now to Montreal and the Islanders. So I think the Blues win. Again, I'm not going to lay -190. I think if you want to take St. Louis, you look at the regulation line, get it down below -150, or you look at the puck line, lay a goal and a half. But I'm not necessarily inclined to do that with a team like St. Louis. They do win a lot of one-goal games. They're not a team that's typically a trust to win by margin type of team, for me at least. So to me, I would lean. I think St. Louis is in the right spot here today, but it's not the price I'm looking at. Teddy Covers is joining us in just a second. We'll get him queued up in just a second. I'll blast through these last 4 quickly. Detroit, Calgary. Calgary -235, total 6.5 shaded to the under. Bill Peters called the Calgary team out before their win against Philly. It worked. They played a much better game, especially defensively. They could get a little spark from that. Detroit not playing well the other night against Vancouver. I still think Detroit always tantalizing at this price range, but I'm going to leave the Red Wings side alone because Calgary, I think, sort of got fired up by their head coach, who said they weren't playing the way they should be after their loss to San Jose, and they played much better after that. Ottawa, Vegas, certainly there's another team that should be ticked tonight. Vegas, they weren't happy with their game against Nashville, with the turnovers, with the miscues. The Nate Schmidt injury is an underrated injury for the Golden Knights. You got young defensemen now on that team that have to play extended minutes that they're not used to. But they should be in the right mindset to take care of business here against Ottawa. They're laying a huge number, obviously, -300, 6.5 over, -120 for the full game total. Maybe you go Vegas team total over or Ottawa team total under. I really do think Vegas is going to focus defensively on a much better game. Gerard Gallant was not happy with that team defensively the other night in the loss against Nashville. They will probably make an extra concerted effort to shut down Ottawa tonight. So those would be the way I'd go in that game in terms of leans, but not involved in that game. Nashville, Arizona, I liked it. If you watched the NHL Play of the Day video earlier, I like the over in that game. Nashville's gone over the total in every game this year. Their offense has improved. Arizona recently lost Nicholas Hjalmarsson on their blue line. He is their best shutdown defenseman by far. Leads the team in blocked shots. It is a big impact loss at the defensive end of the ice for Arizona. Nashville, again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You ride these teams that are on streaks, whether it's a win streak or a total streak, you ride it until it stops cashing for you. And that's what I'm going to do with Nashville, Arizona, over 6 plus 100. Buffalo, Los Angeles, the last game on the NHL card, LA minus 125. Total 5.5 shaded to the over minus 120 in this game. Buffalo, tough loss for them last night, got out to a great start and ended up losing 5-2 to Anaheim. I was not happy. I was on the Sabres last night. Thought they started great, did not finish good. I might give them another chance tonight. Carter Hutton will be in net. Linus Ullmark was in last night. That took me by surprise. I thought Hutton would have been in net last night. He wasn't. Ullmark kind of struggled. Hutton's undefeated on the season, 4-0 in his 4 starts. I know it's back-to-back on the road for Buffalo, but you're going from Anaheim to L.A., when you're doing that Anaheim, LA back-to-back road trip in consecutive nights, you're usually staying in the same hotel. You're not flying. You're busing your way from Anaheim to LA. It's not big-time travel issues, in my opinion. It's not taxing travel by any stretch of the imagination for Buffalo. They're better than LA. LA is awful. LA's hideous defensively. Sabres plus 105. Also a look over the total. 5.5 minus 120 would be the way I'd go in that one. All right, it's time for Teddy Covers to join the show as he does every single morning here on Betting with the Bag. Although, as I said at the top of the show, for this morning with Jimmy sick and ailing, an ailing bag today, unfortunately for Jimmy. It's Betting with Bobano today. Teddy Covers joining the show as he always does every morning. Teddy, how are you today?
I'm doing all right. I like Betting with Bobano. That's got a nice ring to it, buddy. I have a question. Now that Jimmy's not here, I got to ask you, why do they call him Jimmy the Bag? He won't tell me.
You know what? I've never heard the true answer and story to that either, and that's shocking because I've known Jimmy for a while now, years now since I've been working at SBR with him. But that's a good. What have we got in the chat here? We got to see if someone can give us that answer. You're right. I have not. It's not one of those things, Teddy, where I'm thinking to myself in my spare time, boy, Jimmy the Bag. I wonder where he got that name or how he got that name. But it's an interesting question because I don't have the answer, unfortunately, for you either right now. But nevertheless. It's something we will get you that answer at some point.
I appreciate that.
Teddy.
Thank you.
We will. We'll work on that for you for sure. Speaking of working on things, let's work on this Thursday night card. Obviously, we'll all hit on everything with you except hockey. I mean, Teddy's one of those guys. You can't tell the difference, Sidney Crosby from Bing Crosby. So we're going to leave the hockey discussion out of it with Teddy here today. But everything else we'll get to with Teddy. Starting with the NFL game, Teddy, I made a case for as banged up and beleaguered as they are. Now that the line is down to -3, I made a case for Kansas City. I got a bet on the Chiefs now, laying the 3 on the road. Maybe I'm just down on Denver more than people are. I took Tennessee last week, and I was as angry and infuriated as I've been in a long time watching a game because of the inept play at the quarterback position of Marcus Mariota. Inept is the word. Okay, if you watch that game, there was nothing you could say that, Marcus Mariota did that well. No, he did nothing well. He did everything horrendously in that football game. And Denver, you look at their last 2 wins, everybody's saying, turning point. You got some life and some energy back in this team, playing better on both sides of the football. Hold on now. They beat the Chargers, who are lousy as home favorites, and once again proved that against a Pittsburgh team on Sunday night playing with Devlin Hodges, their third quarterback. And they beat a Tennessee team that's totally inept at the quarterback position and offensively is way below average. So those are the 2 wins for Denver to sort of pump themselves back up. I know Kansas City, Eric Fisher on the O-line. The O-line's got some injuries. The D-line's got some injuries. It's concerning that Carlos Hyde, who's not a top-tier elite running back in this league, ran amok against this Chiefs defense last week with Houston. Now you got to face Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman in this Denver backfield, which in theory should be a much tougher test for this Chiefs defensive front. But man alive, I mean, this is a big-time move toward Denver. And now that it's 3, I mean, you look at series history, Chiefs have had no problem beating this team. 6-0 straight up, 5-1 against the spread, last 6 head-to-head. And I know the Kansas City Chiefs defense is a worry. It's a big-time worry. They're not stopping the run. They're not getting off the field on third down. That's a concern for sure. But, you face Deshaun Watson. You face a competent Colts offense with Jacoby Brissett in the 2 losses, and Frank Reich, who can scheme an offense and get a team ready to go from that side of the football. In my mind, I'll trust Frank Reich to put together an offensive game plan that can work against a defense like Kansas City's, and he did on that Sunday night game. Joe Flacco doesn't scare me as much as those 2 previous quarterbacks that Kansas City's faced did, Brissett and especially Deshaun Watson, the way he's playing. So now that this line's 3, with Kansas City, Teddy, I'm getting in on it now. -3, value going my way on this Chiefs side. Maybe I'm stubborn because I bet against Denver last week and paid the price for it, unfortunately, with Tennessee. But I'm going to go back to the well. I think this number now with Kansas City, despite the injuries, is one, in my opinion, that's worth betting now at -3. What's your take on Chiefs Broncos?
So I'm not going to pull the trigger on KC. I would only bet KC in this game, and the concept is simple. Chiefs are good, Broncos are bad, and it's a field goal game. And I'm with you 100%, Ian. Should I call you Ian or Bobano? Which you
Ian.
both?
I like hearing Ian. I've called Bobano too much. I do have a real name, a birth name. You know that, right? Ian Cameron. I do, believe it or not. I wasn't. Mom and Dad did not call me. Yeah, let's Bobano Cameron. No. That didn't happen. So I like hearing Ian every now and then.
Exactly. I got a last name too. It's Savransky. The Covers is nice. It's a good nickname. But Savransky is the real name, obviously. But look, there's no comparison between these 2 teams. Okay, Denver is not a playoff caliber team, and Kansas City, if things break right for them, are capable of winning the Super Bowl this year. So at -3, I totally get it with KC. I wouldn't talk. And the 2 losses the Chiefs have suffered over the last 2 weeks. Where they lost to Houston and they lost to Indy. You can make a case that the Texans are the second best team in the AFC and the Colts are the third. I mean, you really can. They're both better than a lot better than Denver, and particularly the offensive lines are a lot better than Denver because that's the concern here. Kansas City, in each of those 2 losses, their opponent's game plan was real simple: hand it off, burn the clock, go on these long, time-consuming drives against a team that can't stop the run, and keep Patrick Mahomes and the offense off the field and prevent them from getting into a rhythm. And it's worked. It's worked 2 straight weeks in the second half of these games where, you just grind out first downs on the ground and keep Mahomes on the sidelines twiddling his thumbs. Denver, in theory, is supposed to be capable of doing it. And the wise guys are looking, though, this is all sharp money coming on the Broncos. They're saying, look at those rushing stats. They can run the football. In a matchup of Joe Flacco versus Patrick Mahomes in a 3-point spread, I ain't taking Joe Flacco. Okay. But I think the better bet here, and my lean here, is towards the under, simply because I'm expecting, Denver's going to do that. Denver's not taking shots. Flacco's not a QB who anybody trusts right now, especially the Broncos coaching staff. Denver wants to win exactly the way they won last week. Run the football. Grind it out, keep the game as low scoring as possible, extend drives. We know what KC wants to do. They want to chuck the football around, but Mahomes isn't right. The offensive line isn't right. Their skill position talent isn't right. So I lean Chiefs, I lean under in this one, but like I said, I haven't pulled the trigger on either one.
All right, very good. And that's what's fascinating about the betting markets. Here early in the week, I'm thinking I'm not going to be involved in this Kansas City-Denver game at all. And sometimes, there's a line that gets away from you, it moves against you, and hey, I've lost the best number. I'm not going to get involved anymore now that I can't get the best number that I thought I could on that particular game or that particular side. And then you have instances like this where early in the week, Teddy, I'm like, I'm not going to be involved in this Kansas City-Denver game when it was, 5.5 at the time. But now it's come down to 3, and now all of a sudden a game I wasn't going to be involved in, the line's come my way, and it's come now down to a point where I find that's my strike price. That's the point where I'm going to pull the trigger, and that's where I've arrived now with Kansas City, now that they're laying 3. And that's fascinating. That's the way the betting markets work. You never know where it's going to take a bet away from you, because the line's going to move away from you, and when the line's going to come back to you where you're hoping it will, and all of a sudden it opens up a potential betting opportunity for you. So, Teddy, it's fascinating how the betting markets work on a daily basis. Always keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, but though, I mean, the one thing that we try to do, Ian, and both of us have been doing this for a long time, you're not going to be accurate all the time. Not 100%, not 90%. But if you can hit 4 out of 5 in terms of looking at the leading indicator books and saying, hey, this line's moving in this direction, and let's get down right now. Or, hey, we know the wise guys are going to come in on KC this week. Let's hold off. Maybe we will see a 3. The more experience you have betting, that's something that really helps. If you talk about, what's the difference between betting year 1 versus betting year 5 versus betting year 15? I mean, that's one of the biggest differences, the ability to see the line moves before they happen. And that's something, obviously, that we try to do on this show with Jimmy, with Ian, with myself is, all right, bet this here. Oh, no, you like that side? Wait, plenty of time. Kickoff's not for another 2 days. In this instance, waiting certainly gave you the line you were looking for with Kansas City, that 3, your strike price, now widely available pretty much across the board. You can even get a reduced juice.
Exactly. Minus 105 at Chris, just as one example. So absolutely. And I knew as someone that was, I knew I wasn't going to be on Denver in this game. And I'm like, as someone that was, it's just a little too high for Kansas City, but I knew right away early in the week, you're not splitting the atom, figuring out that money's coming against Kansas City, because every week, it seems people are flocking to bet against the Kansas City Chiefs. That's just the way it has been, and it was pretty much that way last year too, for the majority.
There's
of the
a reason for it, Ian. I mean, that when you look at the advanced metric stats, the Kansas City Chiefs defense, their stats look atrocious. From a yards per play basis, yards per carry basis, opponents QB rating allowed, Kansas City at or near the bottom of the NFL. And the wise guys, you can count on money coming against Kansas City as long as those defensive stats look the way they do. And with, 4 straight non-covers for the Chiefs, that strategy's paid off in recent weeks for sharper bettors.
All right, we'll catch up on the comments in the chat. I'm terrible at this most of the time. Jimmy's much better at reading the chat comments, but we'll get some in here. Rod Zawacki, Chiefs minus 8.5 plus 195. Alternative spread. Like that. It's a decent little value there if you like that. Ray Williams liking Denver. Rod Zawacki, Chiefs win in a shootout. Let's see what else we got here. Tho Marino, Houston Texans ran all over KC. They can't stop anyone's running game. Oh, that's definitely the biggest concern. I mean, third down defense, it seemed like 3rd and 5 every time in that game against Houston. There's Houston running the ball. There's Houston getting a first down and keeping the chains moving and keeping that Chiefs defense on the field. There's no question. That's going to have to be a lot better tonight. And unfortunately, with all due respect to Carlos Hyde, which isn't much, to be honest with you, in my opinion, you're facing Lindsey and Royce Freeman tonight. As I'll take those 2 running backs over Carlos Hyde. So it's going to be a taller order for Kansas City tonight. We'll see how they fare against this Denver running game. That's going to be key to their success, that they at least get in the gaps. Those runs up the middle were killing Kansas City on Sunday. You got to be tougher in the interior of your defensive front. We'll see if they can be that way tonight. Let's go to college football, Teddy. We got 2 games on the board. Start with the Sun Belt game. UL Lafayette, Arkansas State. UL Lafayette about minus 6.5 road favorites currently across the board, 68.5 the total. I made a case for the over in this game just because Arkansas State's offense is great. Their defense is not so great. That's definitely the concern with them. UL Lafayette, more than capable offense. I know they got shut down a little bit in the loss to App State, but App State, when they step down in class in the Sun Belt, that's a very good App State defense. I know App State's defensive numbers in non-conference play were not so good, but I still think it's a very good defense overall, or a better defense once they step down into Sun Belt play, and they proved that in the win against Lafayette. But one hesitation is, even though this is an over matchup, and I said this earlier, the matchups and the fundamentals say over. The one concern is, we've had a little bit of a pattern last couple of weeks. These weeknight Sun Belt games early in the week, midweek, they're staying under. Troy South Alabama last night, the Lafayette App State, which was in this same totals range, high 60s, stayed well under the total. So that's definitely a little bit of a nagging concern I've got in the pit of my stomach. But to me, the matchups and the fundamentals on the field point to there being some points scored in this game tonight. What say you, Teddy, about the Sun Belt matchup tonight?
Well, Lafayette's got a good defense, and that concerns me in this total range in a weeknight game, because you're right. The offenses aren't in the same sync when they're playing on Wednesday night or Thursday night, as opposed to being in that same rhythm where we're playing every Saturday and every Saturday and every Saturday. Now, Lafayette may have an edge because they played last week during the week, where they played last Wednesday in that game. But and I guess Arkansas State's coming. Arkansas State's an over team, and Lafayette isn't. And I don't know who's going to control the flow. I mean, the only thing the Red Wolves can do is play shootouts. That's their MO. And that's why they're dogs in this game. They've given up, 656, 526, 512, 722 yards in their last 4 ball games. And not all of those came against elite offensive teams by any stretch of the imagination. So maybe this is the game where Lafayette and the Raging Cajuns get moving. But again, this is an offense that was held at 254 yards and 7 points last week. I'm not running to the window, or last game, I should say. It was last week. I'm not running to the window to say, let me get them over 68.5 tonight. Lala's a good defensive team, and in general, I want good defensive teams in weeknight games. But if the shootout correlates with the Arkansas State side, I think if the Raging Cajuns going to win and cover this game, it's likely to be lower scoring. I don't think they want to get into a game with Arkansas State where they're trying to trade scores with a potent offense that the Red Wolves have.
And they do. They've had a really, really good offense, not just this year, but years past as well. Been able to have no problems at all moving the football. All right, Pac-12 action, Teddy. We've got UCLA taking on Stanford, and boy, you've got to stay up on the quarterback issues on both sides going into this game. There's a lot of injury news with the quarterback position on both of these teams, especially for Stanford going into this game, and that's why we've seen the numbers shift to the point it is at right now, where Stanford was laying more than a touchdown at one point in this game as home favorites. Now they're laying 3.5 across the board, and even a 3 showing up at Pinnacle right now. That's always, when you see Pinnacle off market from the majority of other books, you got to take notice of that. And you're seeing that right now with Stanford -3 at Pinnacle, 3.5 elsewhere. Total 49.5 in this game. So Jack West time at the quarterback position for Stanford for this game, with Davis Mills out, with KJ Costello out, down to their third quarterback. Will it matter against this pathetic UCLA team? That remains to be seen. And on the other side, will it be Austin Burton making the quarterback start again for UCLA, or will Dorian Thompson-Robinson make his return? Questionable last I looked. I've been looking, yesterday I was looking for info on this. This morning I'm looking for info on this, whether he's going to play. It's still very much, I think, up in the air, probably come down to game time last I checked. So it's going to be one of those guys, Burton or DTR at the quarterback spot for UCLA. But what I'm looking at with this UCLA team, Teddy, and I know it's down to 3.5 because of the Stanford quarterback injuries, down to the third quarterback. They're going to have 3 freshmen on their offensive line starting for them tonight, too. That's definitely a concern. This is a ravaged team along their O-line. And when you're laying points as a favorite with a banged-up O-line, with a third-string quarterback, with as conservative an offensive head coach as you'll ever see in David Shaw, there are my big-time reservations right there for laying 3.5 with Stanford. However, that would be my lean in this game. I'm not involved in it. But I said to the chat earlier, Teddy, if I'm getting involved, I'm laying 3.5 with Stanford. I can't make a case for UCLA right now. I can't make a case for a team that looks like they're a sinking ship falling off a cliff. Chip Kelly in a lot of these games, too. I'm looking at his demeanor on the sideline, and I saw it in the game against Oregon State in that loss, 48-31. He looks disinterested. He looks disheartened. He looks like he's, he doesn't look like he's fully locked in and fired up and just all gung-ho for coaching UCLA football right now. Just from a body language standpoint, I'm not seeing that from Chip Kelly right now. I'm not seeing things that I like. And that's a concern. It's a sieve defense. They gave up 48. They got shredded in that loss by Oregon State. They're 1-5 straight up on the season. The only win you could say is a fluke win. They were down by 20 against Washington State, that crazy, crazy game where Washington State started treating the football like a hand grenade and turning it over all second half, and it resulted in short fields for UCLA and points for their offense and fueled that comeback, that crazy game, 67-63. That's the only win. And now you got UCLA in a price range where, you know what, if they don't win the game, they're going to have to come close now that they're only catching 3.5. So my lean is Stanford. I could only back the Cardinal, but I don't know. Third quarterback, offensive line injuries galore, 3 freshmen on that O-line, a coach that doesn't open up the playbook. You got to be able to put points on the board. It's the same issue I've always had laying points with Stanford and David Shaw in years past, and it's the reason why, even though I lean that way, I'm not going to lay the points tonight with Stanford either. Teddy, what's your thoughts on this Pac-12 matchup?
Yeah, I mean, Stanford's only cover as a favorite this year came in the opener against Northwestern, and we all remember how they covered that game. A fumble 6 with 20 seconds left or whatever it was. Otherwise, that game finishes 10-7. I'm not laying anything, not 1 point, with a team that, again, it's not just the starter who's hurt, it's the backup who's hurt. So now you have the third stringer West. This guy wasn't supposed to play this year. He's not ready. And the offensive line in front of him has 3 Frosh. No way I play Stanford tonight. No way am I laying points with a team that's a terrible favorite, that doesn't cover his chalk, that's playing their third string quarterback who wasn't supposed to play, with an offensive line that won't be able to run the football necessarily, but particularly effectively. Can't do it. That being said, I want no part of UCLA either. UCLA is a one-way team for me. Everything you said about the Bruins, I agree with 100%. We don't know yet who's going to play QB tonight. DRT's a game time decision is what I'm hearing, or in pregame decision, et cetera, et cetera. And the line will move based on his availability. But if I'm going to get involved in this game, the only way I'm going to look is to the under. UCLA's not playing at this crazy Chip Kelly pace this year. Hasn't happened. The personnel's not there. The scheme's not there. Kelly's not interested enough. I don't know what it is, but they're not playing at a crazy pace. That offense hasn't worked. And I know they've given up 48 3 times their last 4 ball games, but Stanford doesn't get to 48 very often. It's just not how they're built. UCLA's offense isn't working. Stanford's defense is fine. At least it's okay. So if I had to play the game, I would play under, but I can't lay points with the Cardinal here. And it's 3.5 now, just by the way. It looked like it would go into 3, and that's not happening. Back up to 3.5 just about everywhere in the last half hour. One more reason to make sure that you're bookmarking and checking that SBR odds page all the time. That's one of those things should be open on your screen all day long. You want to be aware where the money's coming and where it starts to come. That way you get your wager down if you need to at that given moment. So no action for me. Lean under. But I'm not excited about playing, with that UCLA defense. I'm not super excited about that under either, but that's the only way I would play it.
Yeah, it's a tricky game. It's pick your poison game. Do you want to take a UCLA team that looks shot, it looks completely awful, horrendous, and a coach that looks disinterested? I mean, this is now multiple. I've seen UCLA multiple weeks, and I see Chip Kelly with that blank 1,000-mile stare, and it looks like he wants to be anywhere else but there right now. That's a concern. He just doesn't look like he's got that. He's locked into his job right now and focused and really gung ho and excited about it. He looks like, oh, geez, I got to wake up and go to work today. That's the kind of emotional. That's the kind of facial expressions I'm seeing out of Chip Kelly right now, and that's a concern for me as well. But yeah, I mean, Stanford, you're right. They've been a terrible favorite. Third string quarterback, freshman on the O line. That's a concern. I'm going to get to the question. Paco Healy in the chat had a question for Teddy about one of these Saturday games. We'll get to that. We're going to do some Saturday, Sunday stuff at the end of the show. I'll definitely get to that question for Teddy later on. But we'll move on to the baseball game now. It's a big one. ALCS Game 4, Greinke Tanaka, Astros Yankees. Yankees minus 125 in that range, 26 at Heritage, 24 at 5 dimes, 8.5 the total in this game. This is now I've been betting every game in these playoffs, NLCS or ALCS. This is one of the stronger opinions I've got. I'm going to lay this price with the Yankees tonight. I think it's their spot. They don't want to go down 3-1 in this series. I don't. Not that they can't come back and win 3 straight, but I don't think they want to put themselves in that position to do it. This is the guy. If you're going to hit someone on this Astros pitching staff, this is the guy you're going to hit for the Yankees. Greinke's struggled in the postseason. The long ball, the gopher ball, has killed him in the postseason. On a day where the wind's blowing out a little bit at Yankee Stadium, and that stadium's not good when you're struggling with allowing home runs like Greinke is right now. This is a chance for the Yankees lineup to get their game back a little bit, get some offense going. I definitely like this Yankee side tonight. Tanaka's been very good so far in the postseason, and he's also been very good against the Astros head-to-head. His head-to-head numbers against the Astros quite good as well. Tanaka 1.32 ERA in the postseason, 1.50 overall against the Astros head-to-head. There's a Yankee spot. I think the Yankee matchups work against Greinke. Power hitting team, an offense that I think on a lineup that's overdue to get going. And I didn't even think the lineup was that poor in the last game, Game 3 against Garrett Cole. You look at it, if Didi Gregorius's warning track fly ball leaves the yard and instead of ending up in a glove, That's a 3-2 Yankee lead after the 5th inning in Game 3, and maybe changes that game completely. And we're talking about a completely different complexion and maybe ending in that game instead of an Astros Game 3 win. So they were that close from taking that lead in that game. This is still a potent Yankee lineup against a pitcher that's struggling with the long ball, against a lineup that can make you pay for it when you're struggling with the long ball. So I like the Yankees here at about -124, the best price right now at 5 times. I wouldn't argue with the over as well. I like I say, I'm splitting it up with the over, full game and first 5. I think first 5 is definitely something I want as well as the full game, splitting it up, because my handicapping thought process here is more of the damage might be done against Greinke early in the game than it will be against the Astros relievers later in the game. So that's what I'm looking at, Teddy. Yankees money line, and also a split between the full game over and the first 5 over, which is 4.5 -105. You got any thoughts on this one, Game 4, the ALCS?
So let me preface my thoughts with that my MLB postseason has been downright lousy. And the other night I'm like, oh yeah, you take both dogs, or we're going to split, you're going to get one. No. We were in trouble right from the get-go. So I haven't been lighting up in the MLB postseason. All that being said, you better believe I bet the Yankees tonight. Of course I bet the Yankees tonight. It's the ultimate Yankee spot. And the rainout yesterday is exactly what the Yankees needed. You talked about Greinke's struggles. Okay. Zach Greinke has had issues in the postseason in Milwaukee and in Arizona. And so far this year, 2 suspect starts at best for Houston. Greinke is not – we love Greinke in a low-leverage situation. We love him in a game where, he's pitching against the Royals in July. I don't want Zach Greinke in the Bronx in October. He's not that pitcher. And the postseason track record shows that he's not that pitcher. And the fact that the Yankees had the day off, all right, number one, you just faced Verlander and Cole, okay? Now, let's get away for a minute. Let's come back, and let's see if we can get that warning track fly ball to go over the fence. And the Yankees have the lineup to do that. No question they do. I think that helps. Issue 2 that it helps the Yankees, they were looking at bullpen game. Now the bullpen's fresh. So they can use all their best arms tonight, and we know how good the best arms in that. Yeah, I know Ottavino's had a bad postseason, but he's the only one. And when you're looking at elite-level bullpens, the Yankees have it. And when they're fresh and ready to go, behind Tanaka, who is a proven postseason performer, unlike Greinke, and the sharp money's coming on Houston here. Not my money. I like the Yanks. I know the Yanks are the square side today. I don't care. I think the series goes back. Or I think the series is 2-2 after tonight.
Yeah, I know you're one of the people that taught me 7-8 years ago when I was first starting out, who the hell cares where the line moves? Who the hell cares if it's sharp or square or whatever the hell? You handicap the game, you put in your work, you put in your time, and if you find you're getting value and you're on the right side and you've capped the game for a certain way to play out, forget the line moves and where the line's going, where the line's not going. You go ahead, you pull the trigger, you stick with your convictions and your guns and your opinions, and you go with it. I learned long ago. Yeah, line movement. I don't give 2 shits about it anymore. Excuse my French. But yeah, exactly. So
let me jump in here because there is one key. I mean, we can't say we don't give 2 shits about line movement, but we're not going to freak out because the line moves for you or against you. That being said, anytime you're betting, you're trying to beat the closing number and get the best of the number. So it's not like you're saying, "Oh, I don't give a shit because the line was 2.5 and now it's 5. Oh, I'm going to lay it." You want to be on the early part of that line move, not getting in after it's already moved. So the line does matter, but whether it's sharp money, whether it's square money, whether it's a line move that's reasonable, it's not anything to freak you out or get you off a game. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I meant. But I mean, in terms of the line movement making me freak out, it's like, how is this line going against the side I like? Oh, I can't bet it now. No, you'd never, ever think that. Never. And that's something I learned immediately because if, these people that are moving these lines, they'll get stuff wrong too. All right. They'll have dead wrong side losers too. They're not all going to be right moves, correct moves, right sides. And that's the point we stress definitely with freaking out to line moves that may be going against you. So Teddy and I in agreement. We both like the Yankees here in Game 4 to tie this series up at 2 games apiece. Let's do some Saturday, Sunday stuff in terms of NFL and college football. First of all, Paco Healy in the chat had a question for Teddy. He wants his opinion on the San Diego State-San Jose State game on Saturday. San Diego State right now laying 8.5 on the road, total 46 in that game. San Jose State's got an offense, and they've got a passing game with Josh Love. He's been pretty damn impressive. Scared the hell out of me as someone that was on Nevada last week. Barely survived the win in that one with the Wolfpack, but I also had the over, so that was a no-sweat winner as well in that game. I don't know. San Diego State's an under team. San Jose State's an over team. It's personally not a game I'm going to be betting. Do you have anything on it, Teddy?
So, I mean, they're two bet-on teams. And you talked about the Spartans last week and the offense where, I mean, the big step up in defensive class facing Nevada one week versus San Diego State the next week. I mean, that Aztecs defense is very real. And I worry about Love's ability to chuck the football around this week. And San Diego State is a threat to score on special teams every week. Or on defense, I should say, every week. That defense is loaded with playmakers, and Agnew's throwing the football around. There really is a lot to like about San Diego State right now. But this point spread is not where the Aztec stats are pretty good, and they're getting a fair bit of respect from the betting market. The money came against San Diego State last week, and it was wrong. They ended up closing the covering number against Wyoming. Game-winning drive, confidence-inducing, but that's the way they play. They're not a team that's going to be winning these games generally 3-4 touchdowns, and they're not a team I'm real comfortable laying a price with on the road of more than a touchdown. Even against a Spartans team that struggled against them. So it's not a game I'm going to bet. It's not a total. I mean, in general, San Diego State games, I want to bet under the total. They snuck over last week because Agnew's throwing the ball better right now. The downfield passing, no, I shouldn't say the downfield. They have some semblance of a passing game now, which wasn't the case in recent seasons. They have a chance on 3rd and 15, which was never the case in recent years under Rocky Long's team. But it's not a game I'm going to bet. Good luck, however you decide to play it.
All right, there we go. So briefly, what am I looking at right now in the college football? I cashed with Nevada last week, and it was partially I like the change to Malik Henry, the Florida State transfer. He was on Last Chance U, the Netflix show. I think it sparked that Nevada team. They're still not a very good defense. They proved that. The passing game can shred them, but they're catching 3 touchdowns at Utah State. On Saturday. Utah State didn't cover the last time they were a home favorite in this price range against Colorado State. They only won that game, I believe, by 10 points. So there's a lot of points to be laying for Utah State, and I get the sense that Jay Norvell kind of read his team the riot act after that 54-3 loss to Hawaii. I mean, that was an embarrassment. They got blown out. He sort of ripped his team after that, said it was a wake-up call. It opened our eyes, and they did play better off the bye against San Jose State, but their defense is still struggling. So I like Nevada. I did take the 21.5. I got 21.5. It's 21, still prevailing number across the board. And I like the over in that game. Maybe there's some weather issues in that game that we need to look into further. I got to maybe look at an updated forecast. I usually do that Thursday and Friday. But I see no reason that game doesn't go over the total. I mean, the Utah State offense, Gary Anderson's the coach. They're still playing fast. They've still got the tremendous quarterback there in Jordan Love. And Nevada's still got a pretty bad defense. So I think Utah State will put up points. I think Nevada will too, as I think Malik Henry's given them a spark in terms of the offense. So I'm looking at dogging over in that game, Nevada-Utah State. Teddy, did you have any strong opinion on that game, Wolfpack and Aggies?
Definite rain on Saturday in Logan, winds 15 to 20 miles an hour. So it's going to be a sloppy
That's
field.
why it's coming in on under, yep.
I'm sorry?
That's why it's coming in on the under then. You said it perfectly, yep.
Yeah, of course. The Wolfpack that is not a defense that I trust to get stops against Utah State. And the one thing that we've seen from the Aggies, when they get rolling, that offense gets rolling, they're a blur. And this Utah State team is not as good as last year's squad. And I don't know that the markets have fully reflected that. And there may well be some value on Nevada in this +3 touchdowns range because of that fact. And Nevada can score. And I think that they, in theory, should be able to put up some points here, even on a sloppy field. But I really worry about that Wolfpack defense. And this is the other issue why I'm not going to take Nevada as a 3-touchdown dog. All right, you see it once, you say, okay, that was a bad day. You see it twice, you say, no freaking way this team can't hang. Nevada got punched by Oregon and they quit. And they got punched by Hawaii and they quit. They get punched by Utah State. Are they not quitting? I don't trust them to punch back. So that'll keep me off the over, and that'll keep me off the underdog in this one. Once you see a team, the first time, all right, they had a bad day. The second time, that's your red flag. That means, but I don't understand Norvell running the riot act afterwards. That's fine. Utah State's faster. They're better. And if Utah State gets rolling, I worry that Nevada will, tuck down in the shell once again.
All right, absolutely. So quickly, other games I kind of like on the card. I like Tulane against Memphis. I bet against Memphis last week too with Temple. You worry a little bit now. First loss of the season for Memphis. A little bit of a bubble burst theory, and it's not just that. It's Tulane's a really good football team, and Willie Fritz has done a fantastic job. I like Tulane in that spot. +4 in that one, or +4.5 is I think the number I got in on it at. It's 4 still. 4 still a playable number, definitely in my mind with that one. It's a tricky game. I'm tempted, Teddy, by this Georgia Tech team. I know they're over. They haven't covered a number yet this year, and they've been pretty bad. But we're going to trust Miami laying 18.5 points right now. A Miami team that could barely move the football last week, even though they beat Virginia. A Miami team that lost to Virginia Tech the week before that. A Virginia Tech team that hasn't impressed anybody. Is this the week Georgia Tech can cover a number, Teddy? What do you think about that one? It's an interesting handicap there.
So first of all, I agree 100% with Tulane. I think Tulane might be the better team compared to Memphis. And when when I have a team that may well be the better team and I'm catching 4, I'm interested. Memphis has not impressed me at any stage this season. Even that opener against Ole Miss stands out to me in retrospect. No. What was the second game? You said something that I had a good point in the second game too.
Georgia Tech, Miami.
Oh, right.
Is this the week for
the
Georgia
Hurricanes.
Tech to cover. Finally.
Yeah, the Hurricanes can't be laying 18, and the markets are saying that the sharp money has come on Georgia Tech this week. But it's one of those leap of faith games. All right, you're like, I know Miami can't be laying this. Can we trust Georgia Tech enough to hang around and not get destroyed? And that's a leap of faith. I've seen nothing from Georgia Tech that makes me excited about betting on them. I know I don't want Miami. I know I ain't laying, and I know this price is probably a notch or two higher than it should be. And the only way I can play it, is Georgia Tech plus. But have you seen them play? I mean, have you seen anything bet on from Georgia Tech other than that this line is now too high? But have you seen anything other than that makes you excited about betting on Georgia Tech? Because I've seen nothing from that team that makes me like, yeah, they're just around the corner. They're just about to turn it on. I worry about them getting run out of the gym or run out of the building.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I'm conflicted on that game. And I took Temple against Georgia Tech. And that part of it, because Georgia Tech was one of the biggest 360-degree paradigm shifts you'll ever see from one season to the next. Yep. You go from triple option to pro-style offense with recruits that weren't brought in for that kind of style. And it's been a mess right now that Jeff Collins has to iron out in his first year as the head coach here. It's an issue. We'll get to some NFL quickly right at the end for Sunday. I'll run down some of the plays I'm looking at for NFL on Sunday. One more in college that I'm looking at, because I know I cashed a ticket, fortuitous one, with Central Michigan against Western Michigan earlier this year in this Michigan-MAC rivalry game. Well, we got another one this week, Western Michigan against Eastern Michigan. We know these rivalry games, underdogs are good in them. We know Eastern Michigan, historically under Chris Creighton, is a very good underdog, not a good favorite. I'm looking at EMU there, +8.5. You got any take on that one, Teddy?
So the Central Michigan cover was lucky because they got the last score in a game where they were getting blown out. However, they were the right side in that game at Western Michigan. They got stopped inside the 10. I think it was 4 different times, but they didn't get a point. So even though it covered through the back door, I too was on Central Michigan that day, and I felt lucky to cash that ticket. They were on the wrong side in that contest. And the fact that they lost the turnover battle, had 4 times inside the 10 and didn't score, and still covered, spoke volumes about how undervalued a team they were. Central's a moneymaker. We like that team. When it comes to Eastern and Western, so this Eagles team has been pretty good. This year's team is not that good. Western has an offense. That offensive line is loaded. Wasenick is chucking the football around. I think the Broncos are going to be capable of putting points up against that Eastern Michigan defense, and I'm not convinced that Eastern Michigan is going to be able to trade points or stop them. We like Creighton as a dog. Of course we do. He's had a great track record in that role. We like him more as a road dog. It's not like there's a whole lot of home field edge in Ypsilanti these days. There's ever been a whole lot of home field edge in Ypsilanti. So it's not a game that I'm playing. I certainly understand the case for Eastern Michigan, but again, last week, that was their get-right game, and they blew it late, and that concerns me here. It does. Western's are better of these two teams by a decent margin, in my opinion. So I'm not going to play it, but I'm not taking the home dog.
All right, not taking the home dog in Eastern Michigan. I'm thinking of it. I still think I might go in on it, but we'll see. We still got some things to iron out. We got to dot the I's, cross the T's still. NFL, I'm pretty much set on what I like for Sunday, so we'll run through. I'm just going to rhyme off what I'm looking at here on Sunday. I'm looking at laying the 3 with New York Giants and the over in that game against Arizona. I cashed a ticket with over the total Arizona-Atlanta last Sunday. I didn't even have to worry about that one. And that total got hammered, Teddy. I think that total was like 47 or 48, and it closed at almost 52, if I'm not mistaken. So a lot of people liking that over, including me. It got there easy. I think this is a good chance for Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, to finally shred a defense, because Arizona's defense is hopeless. It's terrible. But Kyler Murray against a below-average Giant defense, I think he'll move the ball too. I think I favor the spot, and certainly the Giants are going to get skill position guys back. We're looking at Ingram coming back. We're looking at Saquon Barkley coming back. Huge for this Giants offense, and I like the situation for them. So I like them laying 3 and over the total, a high-scoring game there. I'm trying to make a case for Indy against Houston on Sunday as well. People are getting very excited about Houston, and I understand that. They've played nice. They've beat up on Atlanta. Big win against Kansas City with all the injuries. But I don't know. I'm looking at Indy at home, where they're very good, with a coaching edge with Reich over O'Brien. I know Watson's playing lights out right now. They're playing really good. And Tunsil's made a huge difference on that O-line. There's no doubt. They're giving him time. The sacks have gone down against Watson. So that's concerning. And Indy's defense is still they shut down KC on Sunday night a couple weeks ago, but they've still got some injuries. Darius Leonard, though, coming back is huge. That's enormous that the Colts are going to get him back. I like the situation for Indy. I think Houston doesn't go on extended winning streaks with Bill O'Brien. They have a clunker usually right around the corner just when you start buying into Houston. I think this clunker is this Sunday against Indy. I kind of like Detroit against Minnesota as that line climbs there. I know it's a short week, but Detroit PO'd over the loss to Green Bay. I don't trust Cousins and the Vikings on the road against. I think a Detroit defense has played pretty good. I was kind of impressed with the way they played against Rodgers on Monday night in that Falcons offense. I like the Rams now at 2.5, 3 against Atlanta. Straight fade of Atlanta. Nothing to like with them. Terrible defense. And I think this has to be a spot. I know Goff on the road has been trouble. This offense hasn't looked right since the Super Bowl last year. Whispers that people have figured out Sean McVay and Jared Goff all of a sudden. But I think against a bad defense, an Atlanta team with another awful, horrendous, heartbreaking loss, I think they find it difficult to get up off the mat. Maybe the Ramsey trade pumps the Rams up a little bit, so I like the Rams there in that one. And I like Baltimore-Seattle over the total 49. I don't trust either defense there. I think Lamar can make plays against Seattle, and I think Seattle can do what they want. Russell Wilson's been unbelievable this season, and there'll be a high-scoring game in Seattle. So there you go. All my NFL leans and opinions right there, Teddy. You got to say on any of those.
Yeah, I got to say on all of them. You know that, Ian. I know we're a little short on time, so I'll try to breeze through it. Arizona Giants over, that makes a ton of sense to me. Ton of sense. Arizona's a dead nuts over team. They're going to score points. They're going to give up points. The Giants have no defense. And as you mentioned, their skill position talent is coming back. That's one. The markets have already moved there. That's as sharp a play as there is when it comes to overs on the NFL board. This Sunday makes a ton of sense to me. As for laying with the Giants, I wouldn't talk you out of it. Extra time to prepare. Arizona is not a team that I trust to really go on a winning streak. So it would be Giants or pass from a side there. I don't know that I get there with the Giants defense. I think the over might be the better of the two. Houston and Indy. I put a Texans future in my pocket just to win the AFC at 9-1. I've got Houston as the second best team in the AFC right now. I've got them ahead of Kansas City, behind New England, because they've got a defense and the Chiefs don't, and apparently that matters in the playoffs. So Houston's not a team I'm necessarily looking to step in front of. From a spot standpoint, I totally get it. And Indy matches up fairly well with Houston. The Colts are not a team I'm looking to bet against. I won't have the Texans in my pocket this weekend, even though I do have a future on Houston to win the AFC. Again, 9-1, and there's only one team that's better than them. I thought that was too good to pass up. I'm with you on Detroit. And again, the stats show the Vikings with this great statistical profile, and the Lions as a team that can't stop the run. And that's why we're seeing the money coming on Minnesota. Minnesota's outgained their opponents by 1.5 yards per play, and Detroit's rush defense numbers are dicey. And to both of those stats, I call bullshit on both of them. Minnesota is not number 2 in the NFL. I know they have number 2 in the NFL right now, and yardage different. I might even be number 1. And from between what they allow on offense and what they gain, what they allow on defense, what they gain on offense, yards per play differential, I'm not buying that with Minnesota. That offense is not that explosive, and the defense is not, they had a bunch of big plays last week to make the numbers look worse than they were. And that game against Green Bay was another game where the stats were not indicative of the score on the field. Minnesota's box scores look better than their final scores. I believe in the Lions defense a little bit more than the markets do. And I, too, would go to Detroit in that game. Rams, 100%. Atlanta's a fade. Atlanta's a one-way team. If you're getting involved in an Atlanta game, you're betting on against them, in my opinion. And the markets are looking the other way. And I thought that they'd say that when you deal out the malcontents, Peters, bye-bye, go to Oakland, have fun. All right, we're going to mortgage our future and get Jalen Ramsey in here. And even if Ramsey doesn't play, even if he's a non-factor this week, from a locker room standpoint, that's meaningful for LA. They're saying, hey, you don't like it? You don't like it here? Bye-bye. We want guys who want to win. So I think from a team that lost 3 in a row, this is a statement game for the Rams. If they lose this, maybe we start to look at them as Atlanta. But the Falcons are a one-way team. I'm either betting against Atlanta or I'm not getting involved. And you talked about Baltimore, Seattle over. I certainly wouldn't talk you out of that one. Russell Wilson is the NFL MVP through the first 6 weeks of the season. I don't think there's any question. 14-0 TD to INT ratio. 2 defenses that are a little bit overrated. Well, Baltimore's defense is a lot overrated. That defense stinks. They can't stop anybody. I anticipate Wilson having a pretty big game here. And Lamar Jackson's making plays, man. And that Seahawks defense is not what it's been. Not even close. So over there makes a ton of sense for this better.
Absolutely.
All right.
You seem to agree with most of what I liked there. Very good. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I know Baltimore's defensive point allowance last week looked better, but Cincinnati's a bottom-tier offense. And even then, the Cincinnati got through the back door late in that game, and Baltimore didn't stop them then, that defense. I agree with you on the Ravens' defense. That unit has dropped down significantly from where they've been in years past, and we've seen it on full display multiple times. So I do think we'll get a shootout there in the Pacific Northwest on Sunday. And I almost took the Rams last week, and I said I'm not going to do it. I thought buy low. I'm not going to do it because I love that Niners team and Kyle Shanahan, and I said I'm not going to take the Rams. This is the week I think now I'm going to jump in, buy low, because Atlanta's not San Francisco, and I think we'll find that out on Sunday. We are completely out of time, but Teddy, this is a blast. I always enjoy talking to you, and it's fun hanging with you doing this on Thursdays when I've had to fill in for Jimmy. The Bag hosting the show. Teddy, great being with you. Great appearance as always. You're here every morning on Betting with the Bag. Let the viewers know how they can find you on Twitter.
Just find me here. Come watch the show every day, Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Teddy_Covers. But let's wish Jimmy a speedy recovery. Hope you feel better, buddy. Thank you guys in the forums for hanging out, listening to me and Ian talk and sharing your questions. Hope I did a decent job answering them, and we'll do it again tomorrow. Enjoy the games. Good luck tonight, guys. Thanks, Ian. Always fun hanging out with you too, buddy. It's like every time we see you, it's like, oh, it's old times, man. I enjoy spending time with you, Ian. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Feelings mutual. Have a great day, Teddy. Always fun seeing you and doing the show with you here on this Thursday when I fill in for Jimmy. So good stuff. Thanks to everyone in the chat. Great. You can join us as always with every show. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully Jimmy will be back at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. I don't have an update. Jimmy just said he's sick. Can you fill in this morning for me? So to be determined whether Jimmy's around for 5:30. Hopefully he is to host the late edition of Betting with the Bag. Thanks to everyone for watching. Good luck with your Thursday night wagers on the betting board. And thanks for watching Betting with the Bag on Sportsbook Review. Have a great day, everybody. And leche a los bookmakers.